Why does technology in the classroom matter, and how can I get better at it? We're discussing the whys and the hows on this episode of the DIESOL podcast.
Welcome to the DIESOL podcast, where we focus on developing innovation in English as a second or other language. I'm Ixchell Reyes, English as a second or other language instructor and teacher trainer, and I'm here with the esteemed Brent Warner, professor of ESL at Irvine Valley College, specializing in integrating EdTech and AI into language teaching. Brent is also a frequent speaker and TESOL blogger.
Hey,
Hey.
flipped it.
Did you notice?
How are you?
I'm pretty good. Happy
All right.
summer. Is it
Happy
summer
summer.
yet?
It is,
Yeah. By the time this episode airs, it'll be summer.
for sure. Yeah. Ready for a little beach action, maybe sitting by the pools, all the good things.
Yeah. And we want to make sure that you stay tuned throughout the episode for a listener only exclusive.
Mm. All right. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but stay tuned for sure. Whew. All
So
right.
this is a big episode, I think, I feel. So we've briefly mentioned in other episodes, but if you hadn't caught up yet, Brent's book is coming out next week.
Yeah.
We've been waiting
Yay.
for this. You guys have no idea how hard he's been working on this. And as we get closer to the official launch date, we thought it would be proper to take an episode to discuss the content of, maybe not all the content of the book, but the ideas
Mhm.
through the lens of the book, and also the toolkit, which is it's a separate, what would you say, publication? It is
Yeah,
a
it's a
toolkit.
little
It's a
it's
digital.
it's kind of cool. So these, I think a lot of times people have tried to do books or resources on, technology tools, but the problem, of course, is that they change so quickly, or, they
Mm-hmm.
disappear, they get sold. And so what we're doing with TESOL, with TESOL International, is building a toolkit that's online. And so what we can do is we can update it very quickly. We can give new tools. So it's a guide to tech tools for for language teachers
Mm-hmm.
specifically. But yeah, so it's a little hard because I'm always like, it's not a book, but it feels like a book. It was as much work as a book,
Yeah,
but
and so like those in our audience who are familiar with ISTE, which is the International Society for Technology and Education, we know
uh,
that in that audience, we struggle finding something that suits our ESOL students.
mm,
And in TESOL, we sort of find that we struggle that we can't find something that connects with our ESOL students and technology. So Brent has sort of bridged this gap, and we had been talking about this for a long time. I mean, this is one of the reasons why the podcast exists, but he has done, I think it's a that small step, or what is it, the giant step for humanity.
wow, that's a little pressure on it for
That's how
this.
I feel,
Thanks.
but that's how I feel. So if others don't agree, then you're wrong.
Okay.
So Brent, how did you do
Yeah.
it?
Well, okay, so we mentioned this before, right? Because when I
Mm-hmm,
was on
mm-hmm.
sabbatical and all these
Right.
things, I was doing the writing process for both of these projects at the
Mm-hmm,
same time. I reached out basically. I said, well, if I get this thing published, I'm really only interested in ISTE or TESOL. And it worked out really well because ISTE was like, we want activities. We don't really want, we're not so interested in the tools specifically. And TESOL is like, we want the tools. We want, we want to
mm-hmm,
know what tech tools work and how to do them. And so I was like, well, what if we brought these kind of together? They are
mm-hmm,
their own separate from each organization. So the
mm-hmm,
book, which is called EdTech for Multilingual Learners, is published by ISTE exclusively. The toolkit, which is an online resource at TESOL.org, is published by TESOL exclusively, but they're both kind of in reference to one
mm-hmm,
another. So the idea is if you kind of already know some tech stuff, but you want some inspiration, or if you want to know how to better integrate technology into your classroom with your students, the book might be really useful for you. I hope it is. And if you are kind of more in the world of like, I just need to know what tools that are out there and I can come up
Mm-hmm.
with my own ideas, or I'm just getting started in the tech world and I don't know how to integrate tools, then the toolkit might be really useful. And of course, ultimately both of them work together really well.
Mm-hmm.
They're meant to kind of feed off of one another. So kind of a lot of the tools that I talk about in the toolkit are mentioned in the book. In the book, there's a lot of these activities that use the tools inside it. So it
Yeah,
kind of goes back and forth.
very, very cool.
Yeah, so I'm excited. And it's the first time to bring these two worlds together. Like when you go to ISTE conferences, and I'll be there at the end of this month, you'll still see that there's not a lot of sessions and things like that for multilingual learners for our field. It's growing. Obviously, ISTE has a vested interest, and that's part of why they wanted the book. And they said, "Hey, we see this future for everything." But yeah, it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot to keep on top of. But let's talk about it.
Yeah, let's dive right in.
All right.
So, Brent, what first made you realize that tech could do more than just digitize worksheets?
Well, I think from the beginning of my teaching career, I've always been into this stuff. Ixchell, we've told a little bit of the story of like how you and I met in the past, kind of saying, hey, what about integrating iPads into the classroom? What about doing these types of things? And so from early on, I was kind of like, there's so much more because tech is interactive, right? It can kind of give you feedback, digital side of things. Before AI stuff, of course, that wasn't
Mm-hmm.
quite the same. It wasn't quite as robust, but it was still like, okay, you can put something in, you can get something out of it. Whereas a worksheet is always just like you have to write something and you have to wait for the processing from someone else to get that feedback. And so even from early days for me, teaching was always like, well, let's see what we can do on computers. Let's see what we can do with different websites, etc.
So it sounds like you can do a lot more of student centered, take a student centered approach, right? But
Yeah.
with tech, how does that work?
Yeah. So I think, and Shelly, you can talk about this too. I mean, you've
Mm-hmm.
got this is something we share a lot, which is like, how do we give the power to the students? And when we give
Mm-hmm.
them the tools, we are giving them the power. We're saying, hey, you can do this without us necessarily, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
as soon as obviously different tech is locked down in different ways, but I think a lot of students go, wait a second, I don't have to wait, right? I don't have to wait for that piece of paper to be delivered to me. I can use this technology and use this technique at any time for myself. I don't have to, if the teacher's already showed me how to do this activity or, use this tool, when I go home, I still have access to those things. And
Right.
so that's kind of the inspiration, which is like, hey, how are we handing that power to the student for their own learning?
Yeah, you and I are very big on giving students autonomy over their own learning and over the process because it goes beyond just the English, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
usually with us for the English, but they're going to move on to something else, right? English is just what they're going to be using to negotiate meaning um,
Mm-hmm.
in whatever field they're in or whatever they're going to use English for. Um, but you and I talk about how we know that tech is actually helping students because students will come back and they'll tell us, "Oh, I use this tool for this thing that had nothing to do with ESL."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget a story of a student who told me it was one of my USC students. She came back and said, "Oh, I'm back in my country." So she's back in her country. And we're required to use Google Drive. And nobody in my group knows how to use Google Drive and or Google Docs. And they're panicking. And I held a little study session and I taught them all how to use it.
Mm.
And I was just like shining and thinking, oh, this is it. It has nothing to do with English. She was now doing it in her own language, but she was now transferring a skill that she learned, right? So
Yeah.
it goes beyond just the worksheet, not the worksheet, the assignment, right? It's another skill that helps them navigate life.
That's right. That idea of transferable skills, I think, gets lost on a lot of people. They're like, "Oh, it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter. It's just a novelty." And it's like, no, these students really take this stuff into their life. And so I had a similar experience
Mm-hmm.
to you, where I had a student who said, "Oh, you're the only teacher who actually slowed down to teach us Google Docs, right?" It was the same thing, and she's like, "Oh, we actually talked about it. And we understood how to do it." And now my other teachers are like, "Well, just figure it out." But she was able to do it because we spent the time doing activities that were specific basically it wasn't about how to use Google Docs, it was language learning, but it was the same thing, right? Where they're like, oh, now I understand how to interact with this thing. A second example that I have of this too is podcasting. Obviously, we've talked about this quite a lot, and
Oh,
so
gee.
yeah, and so several years ago, I did a podcasting project in one of my classes for I was teaching a summer school class, and then I found out I think 2 or 3 years later, someone's like, "Oh yeah, a student recommended me to join your class. She's doing a podcast that she said she learned from you," and I'm like, "That was like." Couple of years ago. She's off doing her own podcast this whole time. And so, to me, I hadn't thought about it like in terms of
Hmm.
like what she's going to take, but she's like, oh, I love doing it. And it opened me up to what I'm interested in talking about and being able to do those things. So again, it's not just the one language learning skill, and kind of tying back to what you said, Ixchell, is I always tell my students that, the language learning classroom is not the goal. It's the bridge to the goal that you're actually trying to get to. And so, it's the same thing with the tech is the tech the one use of the tech is not really the goal, but it can help students bridge the gap between the skill sets that they're looking for and use those in better ways in the future.
All right, Brent. So let's take a look at some of the activities that you've maybe included in the book. But what about, let's say, listening skills? What's an activity that you really like that where you think tech really opened up things for students?
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of different activities in here, but this one, I called Lyric Lover,
And
where
guys, what he's describing right now is he has on the screen this beautiful page. And if you know anything about Brent, the layout is going to be amazing. So you can't see it, but it's very well organized.
yes. And actually, what we'll do, we'll put this PDF for this activity up on the show notes page
Hmm.
too, so everybody can download it and kind of see a little bit of what the inside
Ooh,
looks like.
a freebie.
A freebie, yeah. Let's put it right up in the show notes. So go to diesel.org/121, and you can go grab this PDF of this activity. But yeah, so this one's like a listening one where students
What's it
can
called?
it's called Lyric
Lyric
Lover.
lover.
And so the idea is kind of moving things. It's very low tech for the teacher. Like the teacher doesn't have to know a lot, and the student doesn't necessarily have to know a lot, but it is a tech integration way of kind of talking about building these skills that we're talking about. So for this one, Lyric Lover, the idea is that students can choose songs that they like in English and kind of do a deeper dive into it and understand their own listening skills as they're kind of listening along to the sounds of the songs that they like. So here's kind of roughly how it works. So the setup is the students choose a song, and then for the activity, you would have the students listen to the song and then try to transcribe the lyrics, pausing as they listen. So just doing the best that they can, low stress, right? Keep it easy for them. But then once they're done with that, so they kind of go through. And by the way, you could, depending on your time available, you could say, well, let's just do a chorus, or let's just do, a set of lyrics, or you could do the whole song. Kind of depends. Some songs would be way too long, but you could do whatever. So then when they complete the song, when they complete what they did, they are then going to go search for the official lyrics and then copy them next to the lyrics that they transcribed. So maybe in a Google Doc, if there's two columns or two boxes or something like that, they could put what they thought on the left-hand side and then what the official ones are on the right-hand side. And then they're going to listen again and compare and contrast, right? And they're going to say, hey, now that they see what the lyrics are, what they actually see the official ones, are they more clearly decipherable this time around? And then they can work with the partner to kind of discuss what they heard and what they saw, what the real language was. And then finally, as they're kind of going through that, they could be noting vocabulary phrases, etc. Again, you can kind of add and subtract as much as you want to the activity as the teacher and kind of say, oh, give me 3 vocabulary words on top of it. Or you could just say, like, just work on getting the transcription clear. And then finally, they can work on interpreting the meaning of the song and how confident they are in their interpretation. So this is an example of a type of activity. Then you could kind of move on to like reflection parts as well. So there's ideas like students could write a brief paragraph about what they learned, or they could share which lyrics were easiest or most difficult for them to hear and why, right? And kind of having it builds a deeper meta understanding of what they're actually understanding when they're listening to something or what words they're able to hear or what sounds they're able to get. And so there's lots of possibilities here. And then in the book as well, I include a number of extensions, so ways that you could kind of move on past this. And then every activity also has a list of materials and tools that you could use to make this work. So for example, this one, a couple things that help would be, just one, directly YouTube, accessing websites like lyrics.com or genius.com or something like that. And there's even a website called lyricstraining.com. I think we've talked about it in the past,
Mhm.
where, you can kind of do a gamified listening. So if the student's song that they want is in there, you could kind of use that as your base for starting it.
Um, and so I noticed you really organize it. So you include reflection and extension materials and tools. So it's actually really easy to navigate the page.
Yeah, I mean that's the goal, is to make it really straightforward for
Mm-hmm.
people so they don't have to so you can kind of be as flexible or direct as you want. And so the idea, you'll see inside of the book, there's a link to a QR code which takes you. Every activity has a QR page, an extra set of resources on the page, which includes a slide deck, a Google slide deck that any teacher can click and make a copy of for themselves, so they can
Wow,
actually launch the
that's
activity
awesome.
directly. Yeah, I mean that was a ton of work. It was really like a second
Yeah,
book doing all that alone,
that's
but
that is a time saver. That's a huge time saver.
yeah, that's the idea. Is it's meant to kind of get you 85% of the way there, maybe 100% if you don't really want to make any changes, but you can copy the slide deck for yourself and then you can use that to project to your students to start, so you don't have to build out an explanation of the whole activity to your students as well. So that's an example, and every activity has that as well. So took a lot of time.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So, do you have another activity that is maybe one of your favorites that you want to share?
Yeah, so I've got a one here. This is kind of an AI one. So the book is not an AI book, right? I've
Mhm.
talked in the past about this idea of like, hey, AI is a part of EdTech. EdTech is not a part of AI, right? And
Mhm.
so the book is really kind of focused on engaging students, and I think AI is part of it. But this is kind of an idea. Actually, Shell, you and I did this activity, or did a version of this activity for our last presentation at Tesol. But this one is the idea when students kind of don't know what to do, right? It would say, hey, you got a free write assignment, or I don't know what to write about, or kind of
Mhm.
all of those types of things. We can use some simple tech to help students through that process. And so you can actually give them an activity that would be a way to get them going with everything. So, Ixchell, you and I remember we did this at the presentation. We said, okay, everybody, do something for 10 minutes right now, go. And everybody's like, wait,
Well,
what?
that's why he's going to be one
What?
of those teachers who makes us, those presenters who makes us do something.
Yeah, and everybody's like, wait, what's going on, right? And they're all kind of, and so like very quickly you stop that, you kind of make
Mhm.
it as a joke, right? And you say, hey, when we're kind of given something without any guidance, it's very hard for us to know what to do. And so actually constraints really help us in the process of building things. So again, I will put this PDF also up on the website together, so it'll be available on the
and
show
and
notes
this
there.
this activity is called
Oh, this one is called it's called automated ideation. Automated
or
ideation.
AI.
AI. And so basically it's a couple of simple prompts that you can use. So, right, it could be as very broad text prompt, right, which is like, I need to do a free writing assignment, but I don't have any ideas. What should I write about? Right.
So
And
you
like
have
that,
the prompts in there for us.
the prompts are there. Yeah.
That is cool.
And then you could do ones that are, if you want to do image prompts, like so having students build images that they can use as Kickstarters, right? So it could be something
Hmm.
like, I need to write a journal entry for class. Can you generate some random images that can inspire some ideas for topics, right? And then by the way, of course, you can always tell your students, hey, customize it. I
Yeah,
like soccer, or I like whatever, right?
which
So
they inevitably will, right?
right, right. And then you can also show them more focused ones too, right? So if the text prompt is something like, I need to write a blog post for a class assignment, can you guide me through some questions to explore my interests, experiences, and curiosities? Then use those responses to come up with some interesting topics to write about. Please ask the questions one at a time. Now, of course, we understand that, students could just use AI to write their
Mhm.
prompt for them. And so I'm already making an assumption that you're kind of working through students with the idea of like, the goal is the process of the writing, right? The
Right.
goal is the figuring out what you're trying to do. And so if you can work with that with your students, you can then, say, hey, I don't really care what that end result is. I care about you going through the process of figuring yourself out and then seeing what is important to you. So the more that we can kind of personalize it, which AI is great at,
Mm,
then we can say, hey, like, let's use that. But we are still admittedly in a tricky time where we are concerned about plagiarism and,
of course.
just jumping through. So kind of understanding that exists and both of these can exist at the same time. But again, same type of thing is that you can then kind of move through that, have them do the work, and then as a reflection activity later, you can have students consider variations on the prompts provided, how they can share completely new prompts with each other if they think that their prompt is a better version. So they're getting
Mhm.
kind of multiple versions of these types of things where they're interacting with tech, where they're getting feedback, where they're seeing how well it aligns with what they're interested in. And so, again, just a good way to kickstart students on their, writing processes.
Cool. All right. So you can actually win a copy of the book by heading to the page diesel.org/121 secret.
Secret. Yeah.
Dun,
So
dun,
let's do this one a
dun.
little bit differently. So this is only for listeners of this episode, and you will have had to have listened within the first
Mhm.
week or so because Ixchell, you know that I am doing a launch party, kind of a launch
Be a launch
process, and yeah,
party.
it's all kind of in step up. So if you're interested, go sign up for the mailing list. You can do that at this page, diesel.org/121 secret, or you can just do it at brentgwarner.com/book. Those are different links, but basically you could sign up for the mailing list because
Mhm.
I'm going to be sending out some little mini webinars, maybe a few giveaways, all sorts of things, and then it's all going to culminate in a launch party for
Mhm.
both the book and the toolkit. On June 25th. And so if you get signed up on this page, you will be kind of only in a secret group of people that can win on the 25th. And so I will send you a hard copy of the book for Diesel listeners, right? Other people out there might be interested in these things, but the amount of people who can sign up is only limited to people who have heard this episode. So
And I just want to have a
diesel.org. Oh,
question. Is this
yeah.
open to international entries too?
Ooh,
Because that's what's going to happen.
I do not have the money to do that. I'm sorry. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to be very careful. Okay, so if you're in the States, I will mail you a hard copy. If you are overseas, I will give you a digital copy. I think
Oh,
I do apologize, but I
that's
can't
really
afford it.
cool.
I can't afford it that much to get it
Yeah.
overseas. I was surprised I sent them out and they're like $10 each just to send the
Yeah.
book.
And then
So
sometimes they get sent back because of differences in the way we write addresses. So we've tried that before and we just got
yeah.
things returned to us. So we don't want to do
No, yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. So, anyways, if you're in the States, hard copy book, you could win it. If you're overseas, you could win a digital copy. And we're gonna have some fun over the next week and a half, as we're moving up to this launch party. So, if you want to get in on it, make sure you're on the mailing list. Of course, if you're following me online, I'll post about the things as well. But if you want to know every day, hey, this is coming out, this is what's happening, and some chances to win other cool stuff, let me know by signing up on the mailing list. Oh, and also, Ishal, I'm going to be at ISTE, of
Woohoo!
course, right? So
ISTE is coming up.
I'm coming to your neck of the woods. I'll be in
I
San
know.
Antonio,
That's right.
and so I'll be doing some daily updates on Instagram, so you
And
can
you're
follow me
presenting
there.
there as well, aren't you?
I'm doing some presentations.
So
Again,
look for
there's
his
also
name.
freebie books
Mhm.
going out
Going
at the
away.
presentation. Oh, and then just kind of I should point it out that all of these things are going to be on discount during these couple of weeks. So both the book is going to be on discount during ISTE, and the toolkit will also be on discount for the first couple of weeks on the launch. So if you're interested,
Yeah, guys,
check
be
them out.
sure to follow Brent on Instagram for the updates, especially during ISTE. All right. So, Brent, just a couple more questions. So it is overwhelming with all these tech tools, and as tech advances so quickly, how the heck do you keep up with all the new tech?
It's hard. I mean, I get this question a lot, and Shell, I know you get this question a lot too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh my God, okay, how? So one, you can't, right? That's the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
Is it's just like it's not really possible to keep up with all the tech, but there's a lot of stuff out there. So you can follow people that you're really interested in who give you good advice, all those kinds of things. You can keep up with like some of those websites, like there's an app for that, or
Mm-hmm.
just kind of doing some searching and scanning through things like the Google, the Chrome store and things like that. But also part of the reason for the toolkits on TESOL.org is to help people with that as well. So they say, hey, I just don't have time. I'm not really interested in keeping up on top of it all myself. I don't have the, tens, dozens of hours it's going to take me all the time to kind of just know what's going on. And so that is part of the goal of the toolkit is to say, hey, here's a bunch of tools that have already been vetted for you by me. Here's some ideas on how you can use them in the classroom. So you can click into any tool that we have kind of featured on there, and then it gives you like use cases, what language skills you might use. So right now I'm looking at Cami, right? You and I have talked about Cami in the past. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of an online PDF tool, which is very useful for a lot of students. And then basically what I do is give you an overview, some ideas on how to use it. And then there's like a getting started. So it's actually meant to walk you through your first steps of actually using the tool, kind of get some ideas on what you might do. Then I have a diving deeper section on every one. So really kind of some extra ideas on how it might be used in the classroom or for you personally. Combinations of similar-ish tools if that one's not going to work for you. If you have something in your school that's like, so many schools, for example, already pay
Mm-hmm.
for Adobe, right? So, okay, you might go,
Mm-hmm.
well, Adobe Acrobat, okay, I've got my school copy of it. I can use those, as well as extra resources, like if there are cool videos or communities that are talking about that tool. And so every single tool, and there's more than 100 at this point, and we're going to keep on building, has all of this available for you. And so just to get started with things and say like, hey, I just want something around vocabulary, you can go filter out for vocabulary, and then all of the tools that I've kind of recommended that could be used for different types of vocabulary activities would then show up as well. So the other cool thing is that there's like feedback options. So anytime if someone says, hey, this site is gone now,
Mm-hmm.
or like I really like this version instead, and by the way, it's free for teachers. So that'll all come to me through this, and then I'll be able to make updates to help more and more people who are using this all together.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
So, Brent, why is it important for teachers to know what's out there
So this is the thing, right? Is it's
for the
like,
100th time?
yeah, well, I mean, we need to engage with our students.
Mm-hmm.
They care about this
Mm-hmm.
stuff,
Mm-hmm.
right? You will see straight up different results from students who say like, "Oh, this teacher was showing me this cool thing and this cool thing." I mean, this is part of the world that they live in. So that is one reason that it's important. And their expectations of pedagogy and learning and things like that are changing all the time, right? They're like,
Mm-hmm.
"Hey, I expect to be able to use things that are really actually interactive and useful, not just the old like, talk to your partner, which is fine, of course, right? But like,
Yeah.
but to say like, hey, we need to have a variety of these kinds of things,
Mm-hmm.
because this is the kind of world that students are living in, and that frankly speaking, you're going to get better ratings from your students. They're going to like you more. They're going to be more engaged in your classes, all those kinds of things. And so it can be really powerful.
But also, I think we're modeling navigating through change, right?
Hmm.
In a
Yeah.
broad sense, like that's things change and we adapt and we also struggle with the change, but we model that through the tools that we use and what we share with our students. So I think
And when that doesn't work for us in the classroom, that's also a
exactly,
good thing to show them and go, oh my
exactly.
gosh, right? I mean, it's not, like it's not always perfect, right? And so kind of
Mhm.
understanding that is great.
Yeah. So does it have to be the latest and the greatest?
No, in fact, I've got a number of tools in here that are like super old, our
Oldie
old
and but goodie.
classics. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, you and I for years, obviously, we've talked about Flippity, we've talked about
Vocaroo.
Vocaroo, it's in there,
Good
like all
old
these things.
Vocaroo.
I mean, it is still so good, right? And it's
Hmm.
just so simple, right? But yeah, you don't need, and I would never advocate it must be today's tool, right? It's
Yeah.
like,
The
no, this
latest
thing's,
doesn't mean the greatest. That's
yeah,
for
by
darn
far.
sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I like having some of these classics in my pocket as well.
All right. So that is it for today, but please be sure to sign up for updates on the book, the toolkit, and other chances to win freebies at diesel.org/121 secret. That's no caps, so all lowercase.
121 secret. The number's 121.
121 secret. Is there a secret? There is no secret, right?
Well,
Wait, I'm so
that's for
confused.
yeah. So if people use that, that's where you can actually sign up to win a
Yeah.
copy of the book. The regular show notes are
Yeah, will
at
be it.
diesel.org
Mm.
slash 121. This is the 121 secret is
To sign
only
up
for
for updates,
listeners.
right?
Don't tell anybody that you know about this site. Yeah, so that's where it'll be.
All right. It is time for our fun finds. And I have a Netflix show. It's a short series. The setting is in Jordan. It's called Jinn,
Hmm.
Jinn. It is in Arabic, but it's got subtitles. These teenagers accidentally let out two spirits, one good one and a bad one. And so you follow them through their journey to try to make sure the bad one is not out of control. But as you know, I'm studying Arabic again, and it's easy enough for me to sort of pick up 45% of what they're speaking since it's a more of like a teenage show. So,
Cool, cool.
Jin.
Nice. Mine is a hardware tool. So it's the Magic Keyboard with Touch ID. So the
What?
Apple keyboard, you know.
You got a keyboard?
Well, I got it at school. The problem is
Oh,
it's too expensive for me for myself because
yeah, I was
it's like
gonna say yikes.
yeah, it's like $200. I mean, I am like I love it. I find myself being very in love with it at school. So they gave me one at school because it's connected to my stuff, right? But for me to have it at home to pay $200, I'm like, I'm probably never gonna get it because it's just too much. But I have to say I've been really impressed with how much I love just like having that touch feature right on the keyboard, having the really high quality wireless, right?
So
And
does
so
it just
anyways,
like unlock things and your
uh
like passwords and stuff?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
when you're logging into the computer,
Mm.
it's like
Hmm.
instead of like on
Having
the
to
on the
reach.
yeah, on the laptop, so you have to reach across and
This is
whatever.
where
And
we
so
are, guys. We're
I
so
know
lazy
I'm so
now.
lazy. This is why I'm saying it's like way too much for $200. The truth is, like for myself, like I'm like, okay, I can reach my arm out, but I do have to say, very convenient. It is
Cool.
a true luxury on that keyboard. So
So if you got a couple bucks.
yeah, scoop it up.
All right. For the show notes and other episodes, check out diesel.org/121. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, or on Instagram at DieselPod.
You can find me out there on most of the socials at Brent G. Warner.
You can find me on most socials at Ixy_Pixie. That's IXY_PIXY. See you at ISTE.
Thanks, everybody. Oh, and please sign up. I'm looking forward. If the book's of interest to you, let me know.
Do it, guys. Do it. Do it. See you.
Bye.